it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. I'm going to try to do this video sitting down. The last several videos I've been having to stand. In short, this pregnancy has been kicking my butt. For those of you guys who don't know that, I have 3 ribs out of place and they will not go back in. But I've been going to a physical therapist and my last appointment was a good one and I've been feeling pretty good. So I'm going to try to last this video in the seated position, which is very nice to not have to stand through this whole thing. The other thing that I wanted to say was that the winner of the Backyard Waterfall Landscape Fountain Kit was announced. You know, Greg, the pond guy, came with his lead designer, Brian, and they put in one of these gorgeous pondless waterfalls for us at our house recently. And they wanted to give one of the kits away to one of you guys. So I'm just going to let Greg announce the winner.
But I had one final announcement that I wanted to make on this vlog, and that is the winner of the Backyard Landscape Fountain Kit that Brian and I actually flew out and built for Laura at Garden Answer. And we had a blast out there with Laura. It's going to be a great relationship with Aquascape and Garden Answer. And while we were there, we kind of impromptu decided that we were going to give away Backyard Landscape Waterfall Fountain Kit with Laura, one of her viewers. And we decided to end the contest on October 31st, which just happened. So I'm happy and excited to announce that almost 20,000 people entered that giveaway. She is a strong influencer out there, and we picked one randomly through a computer generation program, and it was Cheryl Weimer of Richmond, Virginia, is the winner of the Aquascape Backyard Waterfall Landscape Fountain Kit. So we're going to be shipping that out to Cheryl.
Huge congratulations to you, Cheryl. I'm super excited for you. You're going to love it, and I really want to see a picture when you have yours all installed. So make sure to send one over to us so that we can see. Okay, so we're just going to jump into the videos from last week. The first one was planting bulbs in my parents' garden, as well as a very short kind of fall highlight tour of things that were looking good in their garden. So the tulips that we planted were in their containers that line their driveway, and they were a type of tulip turkenstica. Every time I can never remember that name. We'll put it on the screen. It's like this little species tulip. They look like wild tulips, and I think it's going to be beautiful. We planted 1,000 of them, and then, of course, walked through the garden after that. First question is from Yang. For the wooden planters by the driveway, do you guys put soil in directly, or is there an inner planter, like a liner? I'm just wondering how it holds up against humidity and frost. Well, humidity in our area is never an issue. We're very dry, but what they have in those containers is a landscape fabric. So they just lined the interior of the wood with that fabric, and then it's just soil up to that. So far, they've done really well. They just installed those planters last spring, so they've only gone through one winter, but everything in them has done really well so far. Sam said, can you help me? I need help pruning my forsythia. I want to keep a natural shape, but this guy is huge. So the best time to prune forsythias is right after they're done blooming. Because they bloom on old wood, after they're done blooming, they need the rest of the season to form their buds for next year's bloom. So if you were to go in the spring, say, or like right now and prune your forsythia, you would cut off all the blooms for next year. So it's very important that you hit it at the right window. It's just like lilacs and other spring blooming things that you need to wait till they're done blooming in the spring. Enjoy that color, go in and then just do a big prune. And you can take it down quite far. Like, don't be afraid to really, like black lace elderberries, some other things in my garden, like I will take them down to hip height. Just to keep them in a manageable size. Astrid said, what kind of serviceberry tree do your parents have? That is an autumn brilliance serviceberry, the beautiful tree. What was the variety of crabapple that you mentioned that hangs onto its fruit? So the variety I showed you in the video is called lollipop, but the word you want to look for on any variety of crabapple is the word persistent, and it usually says it where it says what color the fruit are and what size the fruit are. It'll also say either persistent or it won't say anything. Persistent means that tree will hang on to the fruit until pretty much the birds clean it up. They won't drop on the ground all over the place. Araceli said, do your parents not watch your channel? You mentioned sneaking some flowers in your parents' garden, but aren't you afraid they'll see this before you do? Not so much my dad, and this surprises more from my dad because he loves Ice Follies daffodils. My mom, I think she catches most of them. We put out so many videos that I don't expect anybody to watch every single one. Or, you know, a lot of times they'll get behind and they'll watch a bunch of them all at one time. I don't mind that my mom knows, and I doubt my dad knows. I don't know. What percentage do you think my dad watches?
1%.
1%? I have no idea how many he watches, but I think my mom gives him the highlights. He doesn't watch anything online though, so like it's no affront to me. Indoor Ivan said, love the aerial intro. I noticed you placed the tulip bulbs on the soil surface and then added potting soil into the planters. Will that be deep enough or did I miss something? It may have been lost in the edit, but what I did was I kind of, roughed up the soil when I took out those root balls that were still in there. And then I set all the bulbs out so that I knew they were distributed properly. And then I pushed them. Are the cats fighting? Hey, no fighting back there. You two, you can share. My goodness. So then I pushed the bulbs as far as I could down on that loose soil, and then we just topped up a little bit. So I'd make sure, I think they only needed to be 3 inches deep. And I think we got it. Critter Girl said, how did the caladiums do that you planted by the pool? Not that great. I think that the problem right there was a water issue. They only had one drip line going through that area, rather, when we planted, and then you added extra drip, right, Aaron? Mm-hmm. But I still don't think it was enough. I think the reason ours did so well here is that where we had them planted, there was drip line, but they were also getting oversprayed by our sprinklers every single day. So they were getting a ton of water, and ours did so fantastic. So it was a good experiment, though. It was a learning experiment to see how they would do just on drip alone. They tend to be dry and rocky up there, a little bit more so than we are. So it's possible the water drains a lot faster there than it does here. Ruth said, I'm wondering if the plant in your mom's garden, which you call the coralberry, is that the botanical name, and does it get cut back and bloom every year? So coralberry botanical name is Symphoricarpus. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Proudberry is the variety, and they do bloom on new wood. So typically you want to site those somewhere where you don't have to mess with them. They don't get that big. I mean, they're kind of like a small to medium-sized shrub. That particular variety anyway, so you can just let it do its thing. But if you wanted to put it in a spot that maybe doesn't have as much space, you could trim it back in the late winter, early spring. It will still grow new wood, still bloom that season, and still produce berries. But it's been an especially good year for them this year, both at their house and at ours. Tina said, can you please tell me what is the exact type of pyracantha in your parents' garden? I need that. And I really wish I knew the exact variety, and I don't think that they know it either, because a lot of the stuff that's planted in that area were all like damaged, broken plants that came in on shipments, and they just kind of found a spot at their house where they could just kind of dump all that stuff and let things kind of try to recuperate, and it's really turned into a pretty spot. I think it might be a variety called lowboy, and the reason I think that is because it's got more of a low growing habit, like low and wide, and lowboy tends to get like about 3 feet tall and maybe 8 to 10 feet wide or so, and that's the growth habit of this particular plant. So I mean, that's my best guess. And the last question from that video was, curious how come there's not as many planting videos at Aaron's parents' house? I think it's simply a size issue. Aaron's parents' garden is a little bit small, quite a bit smaller than my parents' garden. They have a town lot, like, what do you think? A third of an acre? Third of an acre, which is like plenty. You can fit a lot in a third of an acre, and it was a lot bigger than our townhouse garden that we came from before we moved into this one. But my parents' garden is like, it's huge. There's several acres, and so there's a lot more opportunity to tuck stuff in there. We did have the chance to plant up their front flower beds. We did that for Aaron's mom for Mother's Day this year, and that was super fun. And I do want to sneak some daffodils over to their garden this fall yet. Hopefully we'll get to it, which it won't be a sneak. She watches every one of our videos, so she'll know. So anyway, Sue, you can expect some daffodils here pretty quick. Next video is helping decorate the garden center for Christmas, and that was such a fun day. We always try to make it at least one day kind of this fun, festive, the family kind of gets together, as much family as can make it, and we usually do it on a day we're closed, and we just finish up Christmas decorating trees, and then I gave you a walkthrough tour. Petra said, how long does it take to get the glitter off your face? Trees look amazing. It takes, I don't know, I think it's like permaglitter this time of year. I think the next morning I woke up, I had taken a shower. I still had some glitter up above one of my eyebrows. It's just kind of the permanent state of affairs. I'm just so used to it now. Allie Orchid said, can you suggest where to purchase Amaryllis bulbs? I would check with your local garden center first. Typically if they're a type that stays open year round, they will be carrying those kinds of things. And that way you can look at the bulbs and see them. You also can order them from Color Blends, Gardener's Supply, and I've had Amaryllis from both of those places, and they're both really good quality, so we'll link those down below as well. Hannah said, will they sell most of the Christmas inventory, or do they store it for next year? It depends. Every year is so different. It depends on what's going on in the world. It depends on where people's minds are at, and I think people's minds this year are like, let's do happy things. Let's do Christmas and let's get things set up early. And so I don't, like this year, I think they're having to reorder already because they don't even have enough to have their holiday open house look like nice and full. So typically they sell a lot of it. If there's anything left, they usually do an after Christmas sale for a little bit, and then they'll pack up anything that might belong to a set, like, because we always do a nativity tree every year or a farm themed tree or whatever. And so they'll keep some of the really nice ornaments, and sometimes they donate the other ones that are left. Miss Scheidler said, I love your videos. Thank you. You have been my garden inspiration since I started watching your videos 5 years ago. I have a question about the container that you used for the succulent arrangement. It was about 14:3 in this video. Where can I order? Oh yeah, I did show that little metal container. We did a video in that this summer. It's on our kitchen island right now, just right in the center, just packed full of succulents. I don't know where they got that container, and you know, honestly, we didn't even link to their website when we went to my parents' garden center website when we initially put the video up. We ended up putting it on there because I never want it to seem like I'm just giving you guys a tour just to sell stuff. That's not my objective. My objective is just to show you what I'm doing, and just it's fun and festive, and I don't know, it's just a fun thing to do. So they do have a few things on their website in terms of Christmas ornaments, and they're trying to add more and more stuff. If any of you guys see anything that you like in those videos, you can send them a message, and they do their very best to get everything worked out for you so that you can get what you're looking for. Anyway, we'll link it down below their website, and they're also on Facebook under Andrew Seed Co. Kel Grop said, stopped at the garden store last spring on the way home and thought, would your parents ever consider a small book for guests to sign in? I thought that was a really interesting idea. Oh, yeah. The store is a part of your story, and perhaps it would be interesting to see who and from where folks have come from. Thanks for your laugh and joy in gardening. I think that's a really, really neat idea, because 9 times out of 10 that I go down there, there's somebody from out of state. And it's just random that I happen to be there at the same time that those people have stopped in. It's like such a special thing. It's kind of like it's meant to be every time, because people will say like, I'm from Canada, or I'm from Texas, or whatever. And I'm like, you came to Ontario? Are you kidding me? So I think it's really fun that I've been able to meet so many people that way. And since it's happening so much more often now, I feel like that guest book idea is a good one. I'll float that to my parents, see if you can make some counter space for it. Laura said, I'm curious, how often do the Christmas trees need to be adjusted as ornaments and decor sell? Often, honestly. It's not like an everyday chore, but it's maybe every couple of days. Either my mom or one of the ladies down there will walk through and just kind of fluff all the ornaments out. They'll bring, if there's anything in backstock, which they have nothing in backstock at the moment, but if they have stuff in backstock, they'll bring that out to kind of fill everything back up. It will start to look even more full though. Let's see, what day is it today? The 9th? Monday. Their open house is the 20th, so in 11 days, so the week of the 20th and 21st, which is their open house, they'll get their huge load of poinsettias and Christmas cactus, and that place will seem full, even if the trees aren't quite as full. But they have more stuff coming. Okay, moving on to the next video was installing a soil heat cable and super hoops, and then I seeded more lettuce and spinach, and I planted almost 1,000 tulips in 2 of my raised beds in there. That was the first video, I'm gonna be completely honest, where I was planting tulips, and I just thought, nope, like I can't handle, like physically, I can't do this right now. That was like my moment of defeat. I got it done, and I came inside and laid on my back for a while. And usually like Aaron helps me out with so much. He was watching Benjamin at the time, but I just thought, well, this is like, I'm not all the way down on the ground, but anyway, yeah, I'm glad it's done. Dana said, what is the purpose of the heat cable? It's just to warm up the soil just slightly. It's a very gentle heat, because right now, even though like it is gorgeous up here in the sun porch right now, like it feels so comfortable, almost on the warm side in here. But the soil temp is just not warm enough to germinate seeds. So it just heats it up gently. It stays on, I think if it kicks on, it's got a thermostat at below 74 degrees. So it's pretty much running all the time right now, and it'll help get things up and going. And that brings me to the next question, which is from Jessica. Can the soil heat cables burn the plant roots? No, it's too gentle of a heat. I wonder if you could use them with other veggies throughout the winter. Yes, it's a fun just to experiment to see what you can get going. We've had such a windy 3 days though. I think the row cover is off right now, Aaron. I think I need to go I talked to a gal at Gardener Supply, and she said that clothespins work really good to just give you extra stability with that garden quilt on those super hoops. You can just clip it on in a few places and then it'll stay put. I mean, the wind was bad. It was pretty fierce for 3 days and it was freezing. We actually I saw the first few snowflakes fall yesterday. Vicky said, will you pull the bulbs and permanently plant them in the cutting garden after they finish next spring? I have no idea what I'm gonna do with those, honestly. I planted those with the full intention of just using them for cutting. If we have our spot set up, which I'm very hopeful that we do, by the time that those tulips are done. I would love to pull them out and pop them over there. Either that or I'll give them to somebody who wants them. I don't have any intentions of putting them in the current garden space though. Isabella said, do we need to water planted garlic throughout the winter? That's a really good question, and I think it depends on your climate. Here where we tend to, it depends on the winter, but we tend to have long stretches that are dry, no precipitation, and they're windy. In that case, it's a really good idea to keep watering your stuff. Don't let everything just completely get bone dry. It's too stressful on your plant. So it's just kind of one of those things you have to gauge and watch as the winter progresses. But we did get hoses out last week. I was so glad we did it. On Friday, we just pulled hoses because we only have, in this garden, how many do we have? Frost freeze, Aaron? 3, right? Yeah, 3 frost freeze, and we had huge long hoses running from all these frost freeze, and we were just watering flower beds and new plantings, the raised beds, because I knew we were in for it for the wind this weekend. And I was just like all nice and happy inside and cozy, watching the wind and knowing all my stuff had a little bit of water at least. Antoinette said, is that garlic behind you in the other garden or the other raised bed? When did you plant that? My garlic hasn't even sprouted yet. Yes, that is garlic. And I planted that on the early-ish side this year, so I anticipated seeing some growth, but it's totally fine. Snow can cover it. It can go through a ton of abuse. And then in the spring, it'll pick up and start growing again. And don't worry if you haven't seen any growth. There are a lot of years I plant garlic and I never see anything until spring. And every year I wonder, I'm like, where are you? But they always show up. Next question, 15 degrees Fahrenheit, that would mean negative 9 degrees Celsius. There's no way you get that cold in October. Well, believe it. We were 15 degrees Fahrenheit one night a couple of weeks ago, which is negative 9.44. I looked at the Google. I had it translate or not translate, convert. I had it convert it to Celsius so I would know. But yeah, which is better than last year. Last year we were in the 40 degree Fahrenheit range, and then it dropped to 9 degrees Fahrenheit in like one night, and it killed a bunch of, like, winter killed a bunch of things. So it's very erratic here in the wintertime, but the next 10 days it's pretty steady. It looks like we're in the 40s during the day and like in the 20s at night.
I saw Linda Botter was saying that it's actually fairly warm now.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's good or bad.
I don't know, but yeah, she said, I mean, so like areas can have that where you have like a freak storm come through,
right.
The temperature just plummets.
Right.
And then it goes back up
with no warning.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the trees were all green and
there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you just have to, like, some days I have to leave, our garden. Like if we're having a really bad windstorm this summer, I don't remember how bad the wind was, but I could see the sunflowers out in the garden out there, and we had to leave the house because I couldn't stay here and watch it. Cutesy Corey said, are you worried about your raised beds that are coming apart at the corners? Not sure if that's what's happening or if it just looked like that on camera. No, they are kind of like splaying out on the corners. I did mitered corners because it looks a million times better than doing this kind of a corner on raised beds, but it's a million times worse. Don't do it. Don't do mitered corners. Now on the inside of those raised beds, we do have metal brackets that are holding the boards together. So while it looks like the outsides, they are. It doesn't just look like they're kind of warping outward. They still aren't going to come apart because they are, unless they rot eventually, because they're held together with that metal bracket on the interior corner. Dr. Kirsten said, is it weird that I'm coming to love the smell of all the tone products? My people. It says to me, beautiful things are coming soon. Okay, it's weird. Not super weird. I'm kind of the same way. The only thing I don't like is even if I wear gloves occasionally, like if I'm in it a lot, even if I've got gloves on and I'm just like doing bulbs all day or I'm doing just something all day that I've got my hands in it, even after a shower and wash my hands a bunch of times, I can like still smell it on my fingers. So I'll be sleeping at night or whatever and I have my fingers close to my face and I'm like, that's not a good smell in the middle of the night. Nobody wants to smell tones in the middle of the night. But no, I totally get what you're saying. Next video was a houseplant tour at the garden center, and I did this one by popular request after the Christmas decorating video. So many of you guys wanted me to do a slowed down tour of the houseplants because I walked you like quickly through the sun porch area or sunroom area, and I didn't really stop. I just was so quick and didn't really give you guys a good look. So that was fun just to go down there. It was a really nice morning and it was just a fun thing to do. So Jennifer said, what is a mounted staghorn? A lot of you guys asked that as well. So a staghorn fern, I showed some of those in the back part of the garden center. And when you mount one of those staghorns, they don't need to be like in direct soil. They can be. You can plant them like that. Or you can get like a neat piece of driftwood or, whoops, let's see. I'm going to turn off my sound here. Yeah, you can get a neat piece of driftwood or a board, and you can put, we need to do a video, Erin, of mounting. It's so easy. You basically just wrap the roots. It's kind of like kokedama a little bit. You wrap the roots in moss and you attach them to the board, and then you can hang them on the wall. And so your staghorn is kind of like looking at you like this instead of looking down on it. That makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay. Anyway, we'll maybe do a video about that. I think that's a good idea. It'd be a good project inside. Karina said, this may be a silly question, but how do all the houseplants get watered? I don't see saucers. There are saucers under everything, I think. Most of them are clear, so they're hard to see. Or like if they have a big bunch of ferns or something, little ones, I'll put them in a giant saucer to where, you know, they can just water everything and then the floor is protected. So the way they water, when I was still down there and I was taking care of houseplants, I saw at a garden center in Boise, actually, they had this tank, like this push-along tank that was pressurized that you could fill with water and then just wheel around. And we got information on that and we bought one. It's called Tanks-A-Lot, and I don't even know if that company exists anymore. But it's basically just like a little hand truck kind of cart thing that has a big tank on it that's pressurized. And there's a little area where you can hook a 5-gallon bucket on the back, and there's a tray on the top so you can have like all of your things, all of your fertilizers, all of your pruners, and then you can groom stuff and water at the same time and put all your junk down in that bucket. So that's how they do it. It doesn't usually last for all the houseplants, so if it's a big plant watering day, then we have to use watering cans too. Desi Girl said, what is that small greenhouse at the beginning of the video by the retail entrance? Do your parents sell those? Yes, they do sell those. They're actually from Gardener Supply. I'll try to find out what model that is and link it down below. It's a perfect size, like a little hobby greenhouse. Carol said, when will you be doing your Christmas decorating? Well, let me tell you, I already have 7 trees up in the house. I don't have anything on them, and Aaron is kind of pushing for me not to put anything on them. You would like that, huh?
I like trees just with lights.
Yeah, he likes trees just with lights, which there is something very peaceful, and I'm kind of like, like of all years, this would be the best year to not decorate trees. But I don't know, I think I would be bummed in the end. Maybe I'll do them a little bit different. Maybe less ribbon. You might like them better, Aaron, without as much ribbon.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe try something different. Anyway, so we're getting after it. Benjamin did pick out a tree for his room, and I thought we'd make a video decorating his tree and maybe one other one. We might put that on here on the highlights channel. I'm not sure where it will end up, but I think it'll be really fun. But I'm having to do things kind of as I feel good. So I just like decorate a little bit here and there as I get a spurt of energy or like things are feeling okay. And that's kind of why I started putting up trees right after Halloween. I know it seems super early, but I don't care. I like having them up early. Ira said, do you only shop at your parents' garden center or do you shop at others? No, I shop at other ones. There's no way that a single garden center could carry everything. There's just no physical possible way. And my parents loved to too. When we are in different cities or different towns, we love to stop at other garden centers because you can learn from other people. You either leave feeling like, yeah, we're doing a pretty good job, or you leave thinking, oh, they've got some really good ideas on how they displayed this type of plant, or I liked that tree rack, it looked very efficient. So I think it's a fun thing to do. In fact, Aaron and I, when we are able to get away for a day, like to go to Boise and do a little shopping, we always stop at garden centers. It's like one of the things we like to do. Gail said, you mentioned working at the garden center. Do your siblings or their spouses work for your parents? Just think it's wonderful to keep a family business going. So my brother does work there part-time. He is a professor at our local community college as well. So he kind of does he's started the website at the garden center. He also does some seed brokering there, and then he teaches. He mostly teaches. And then my sister works there kind of part-time. She comes down, she lives in Washington, but she'll come down like every other month and work for a week. And sometimes she'll come help us in our yard and she'll work for us for a day, and I always love that. We get so much done when she's with me. Working with family, sometimes it's nice because you don't have to mince words and you can kind of you can move quickly without having to waste a bunch of time on conversation. And you both know each other really well. Like Monica, my sister, is really good. She's not, my mom and I are very similar, and we're both chiefs, I guess is the word. My sister loves to just come alongside and be a helper. And that's super, super helpful. Erica said, when your parents decide to retire, would you ever consider, or have you ever considered taking over ownership?
Nope.
No. Eric says no. like, it's funny because so many people are like, oh, you have when I work down there, you have the dream job just working with plants and beauty and all that. It is so much more than that, and it's such hard work, and it's so seasonal, and it's so weather driven, and it's so economically driven, depending on, thankfully my parents' garden center is super diversified because the garden center nursery portion isn't the big portion of their business. They do a lot of seed cleaning and distribution of clover and alfalfa, dryland grasses. A lot of it goes to reclamation projects for like forest fire areas to replant. So that is a huge part of the business. And then they've got the garden center nursery, which like my dad does the seed side a lot and my mom does the garden center nursery side. And it's really nice because they balance each other very well and you don't have all your eggs in one basket. But I'm not sure that, there's a nostalgic part of me that wouldn't want anything to happen to the business. My brother is there and much more nostalgic than I think I am. And I think that he would see it through further than your watch is kind of like, is it on my face? Like the reflection. I keep seeing it getting close. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh. Anyway, yeah. We're considering, I don't know. We don't really want to stay in Oregon too bad either. So
it's just tough being right on the border of Oregon and Idaho because there'd be a lot more benefits to us by just simply moving
across
5 miles across the border.
Mm-hmm. Which may happen.
One day.
We're looking. Not seriously. We'll see. Okay. Immortal Queen said, I love this tour, so peaceful. I have one question. What happens if a section of the plant room at the garden center gets a bug infestation or a disease? Do you close that area off and isolate the plants, or do you throw them out? It depends on what it is. Now, those plants get looked at every single day, and when they arrive, they get fully inspected. That's something I would do before I would let any plant come through our doors. We would unbox everything out on the sidewalk, even when it's cold, and I would look at every plant. Anything that had spider mites, because I could spot them like that, I would send back with the supplier. I'm like, nope, you brought us like bug-ridden plants, and we're not taking these. Because if you introduce a pest like that into your already quarantined healthy plants, like it's a mess. So we do a full inspection, which they still do down there before they arrive. And if they notice anything happening, they take care of it right away. Typically, they can pull the plants from the floor and they put them, we've got a room where it's kind of like an isolation room to take care of them. If the infestation somehow gets out of hand, which it'll happen occasionally, it happens here at my house occasionally, then oftentimes if it's a bad enough bug like spider mites, they'll just throw the plants away because it's not worth even trying to recuperate them all the time. The chemical you have to use to take care of it, and then the possibility of introducing them back in. It just depends. I mean, aphids are one thing, spider mites, totally different ball game. Okay, next video was repotting a palm, planting snowdrops, and pruning roses. So I had a palm tree that somebody sent in a mail time video that I wanted to get potted up. It had been sitting for too long in its plastic pot. And then we planted 500 snowdrops and 60 tulips. Erin helped me with that. And then I pruned up some iceberg roses that desperately needed it. They were so mangy. And I kind of explained, like, rose pruning this time of year, not recommended, but it's what I do. So I try to like heavily caveat the projects I'm doing in my garden. Like, this has always worked for me, but like, I don't want you to do this and then have like not as good of success. Also, like, I'm not married to those roses. I didn't plant them there and they're the wrong kind of roses for that space. So if anything happens to them, like, it almost make my job easier. Like, oh, I pruned these too late. They all died from a hard frost. That's too bad. Hey, look at these two back here. Whoa. Can you see them? Mm-hmm. Cheddar's giving Russell a bath. How sweet. I'm sure that's going to turn ugly here in a second. Sarah said, was that a terracotta saucer you added under your palm? How do you keep it from getting moisture on the floor? That was a terracotta saucer. We typically only buy the saucers that have the glaze. It's a glaze on the inside that doesn't allow water to go out. I mean, terracotta is porous. If it's not glazed, the water will still seep through the saucer. Even though you feel like you're protecting your surface, it can still damage the surface unless the interior is glazed. And we have done a video about how you can glaze yours at home. Like, if you already have a ton of terracotta saucers or you can't find the glazed ones, there are a few products that work really well that you can fix yours up at home. We'll link that down below. D. Davis said, love the palm in the unique stone pot, so pretty. When you put it inside, you used a terracotta saucer. Is there an alternative to terracotta that would better suit the unique stone pot? Yes, I mean, definitely I could have used a clear one, which, you know, you wouldn't notice as much. I didn't have the right size on hand, and that's why I used terracotta. I wish Unique Stone, like, please make saucers that match your pots, or just make like one line of saucers in a bunch of different sizes in all of your stain colors. That would be so, so helpful. I think every concrete company should do that. And I don't know if it's just really hard to make them somehow, or
maybe they crack.
Maybe they do. I mean, there might be like lots of things I don't realize that go into saucer making, but it would be so nice to have things that match. Darlene's Garden Channel said, how do you keep Russell or Cheddar from digging in your indoor pots? They just don't. I've never had, well, we've only had 3 cats. We didn't have any cats before Dexter. Dexter was our first cat as a married couple. Like, I grew up with cats. But it had been, 11 years, 12 years, Aaron? No. 10 years? I don't know. Yeah, it was 10 years. We didn't have any animals. And then we bought this house. Dexter came with it, and we fell in love with him. And then Russell and Cheddar are our second and third cats. And the 3 of them have been really great with plants. I don't know. I think we maybe got lucky, because I know a lot of you guys deal with issues like that. Melanie said, where did you get your electric tiller? So it's a battery operated tiller. It's Mantis is the brand. Do you know the model, Aaron?
It's just the one they sell.
Oh, it's just one.
Yeah,
that's
Mantis.
easy. We did a video about it 2 years ago. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
My timeline runs together a little bit. I really like it. There were other questions about it, asking like what our thoughts were. I wish the battery lasted a little bit longer. If you're using it heavily, it lasts between 20 and 30 minutes, like if you're using it solid, which honestly, most projects, I don't need it that long. But there is that one occasion where I need it for a little bit longer and I have to stop to charge the battery, and that's a little bit of a bummer. But other than that, it is so lightweight. I can put it on a hook up on the barn wall, so it's not even on the floor being stored. And it goes down 8 inches. So you can set it to go down quite far. And at first, like if you're on really hard ground, it might bounce a little bit, but then it'll start digging in and it'll take off and go. I really have not run into any issues in terms of operating it in any of our areas. We don't have heavily rocky soil here though. Occasionally we'll run into one. And I'm not sure how it would handle like rocks everywhere, because I've not tried it, but I'm happy with it. KLCPCA said, does anyone get the idea that the sped up version of Laura is actually her real speed and that she slows down when talking to us? I wish that was my real speed. That would be really nice. I mean, the magic of editing. She said in 7 months pregnant to boot. That has slowed me down tremendously this time. I was a lot more agile and like, I don't know, with Benjamin, it was like a little bit of a different story. This one has been a lot harder. I have slowed down tremendously, and I'm so thankful for our help outside. And we get a lot of questions from you guys, like, how do you keep it all together? Well, I don't. There's no way I could keep it all together. There's too many things going on. And over the years, we did, after we moved in, I'm kind of like side noting here, tangent. But when we moved in 4 years ago, for the first 2 years, we did it primarily all ourselves. We didn't have Benjamin at the time, so that really was that was the moment, because our first person, right, Aaron, that we got to help us was like we had family members or somebody here to help us with Benjamin. Like we realized like time was a lot more precious at that point, and we started realizing like if we're going to keep doing as many projects and putting out as many videos, we do 7 videos a week between highlights and our regular channel. In order to maintain that, it's really not a ton. I mean, it's a lot, but not as bad when you have help to get it done. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, except for I have slowed down a lot, and I'm thankful that we have some help outside to help me get some things done in terms of fall cleanup. And it's not necessarily stuff I need to be doing. I like to do it, but I've been slowing it down just to get through the rest of this pregnancy. A couple months left. Ty said, can you make a video on cutting back Russian sage, big version or denim and lace? Should I cut back, and if so, should it be fall or spring? I always cut mine back in the fall. It just cut it back like this far from the ground. Doesn't matter what variety. Always works for me. Patricia said, I have a couple of questions about bulbs. When you're planting bulbs, is the planting depth to the bottom of the bulb or the top of the bulb? I just go by the bottom of the bulb. And I find that as long as you're close, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And when you plant your bulbs so thickly, do you need to thin them out fairly soon, like in a couple of years, or do they not increase that quickly? They don't. The ones that I plant really close together are typically tulips, because most varieties come back thinner and thinner as the years go on, and they don't normally multiply. I have one variety called Cafe Noir that multiplies in my garden space, but everything else, like, it just starts to dwindle a little bit. so I find I don't have an issue. I usually on daffodils try to get those spaced out a little bit better because those do naturalize here and they do come back year from year stronger than the previous year. Missy said, just wondering how in the world you remember exactly where you've planted all your bulbs so you don't accidentally hit them when planting other things later in the summer and the foliage is gone. You know, we have a pretty good idea just because we document everything on video, but that doesn't mean I don't hit them. Because I have areas that I planted with bulbs before I had them set up with perennials and shrubs, and I typically like to flip-flop those two. I like to have a flower bed fairly planted, like how I want it, and then go in with bulbs, and that way I don't have to worry about it, but I just feel like it's part of the process now. If I accidentally, you know, damage 4 or 5 bulbs while I'm digging up a whole area to plant a drift of perennials, I feel like that's a small price to pay for the beauty that those bulbs have brought me. And the bulbs that do come out of the ground fine, I'll just replant them in like a little ways away. And it's just part of what I do now. Okay, and then the last video from this week was a foraged fall arrangement, and that was super fun because fall arranging and winter arranging and really like early spring arranging are a little bit more of a stretch because especially when you're coming down off of full-on flower season, you really have to stop and be more mindful of the things that are in your garden and look for beauty in different kinds of ways, less obvious ways than like huge blooms and big color. You have to look for texture and color in leaf structure, for seed pods, dried looking stuff that looks neat, berries on branches and things like that. So it was just really fun to go out, show you the process of gathering. There was a lot more out there than I actually thought there was to begin with, and I think that the arrangement turned out pretty. It's been sitting on our kitchen counter, and I've been really enjoying it the last several days. So Genesis said, what was the name of the fully opened rose? I was hoping you'd mention it since you mentioned the Poet's Wife rosebuds. I don't know. So when we pulled out all the roses that lined that sidewalk area where I got that rose initially, I left 2 roses. That one because it was far enough away from the sidewalk, it wasn't snagging anybody, and I really liked the color of the blooms. And then I left a distant drums rose because I love that one. And so the other one, I couldn't find a tag on it. Like, you know, usually they have the little metal thing at the bottom. I rooted around and tried to find it, and I couldn't. It's a really pretty one, though. Maduri said, can you show the process of how to top it up with water? It's really easy. I just kind of go in through the back. I usually, though I'm designing my arrangements for you guys to the camera, just so you see the front, I usually fill the back up with stuff too. It's not quite the same as the front because oftentimes I don't display my pieces in areas that you see it from all the way around. I can just kind of like scoot it up against something. But it's usually a little bit less crowded in the back, and I can put my finger into the container and I just put my water can in there and just slowly put water in until I can feel the water with my finger. That's all. It's super easy, and I just check them every couple days. Shannon said, what kind of hawthorn is that? It's beautiful. Also, is there any way you can devote a video to shrubs and trees that provide berry interest? Yes, we are going to film one of those this week. That is a Russian hawthorn. I chose that one specifically because of its mature size. It grows 15 feet tall by 8 feet wide, so it's perfect for that flower bed. It's just like, there's not a lot of hawthorns that stay really small like that. So it's the perfect kind of like little screening plant right there with all the berries on it. So beautiful. It's also like a zone 4 through something. Really winter hardy. Katie Lynn said the music was so calming. It felt like the perfect sound to represent winding down the busy gardening season. I was wondering, I've heard Euphorbia sap is irritating to the skin. Is that true? Yes. And I'm not sure if different varieties have that irritant in different quantities. I'm always pretty careful. The worst Euphorbia reaction I've ever had, we had a variety in our brick circle area when we moved in. My parents have it on one of their like rock retaining walls, and I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to try to find it. You'd probably know it to see it, but it produces like really thick white sap, and I didn't realize it was an irritant. And I was just working in that flower bed. I was pulling it out. I didn't want it anymore. I was pulling it out, and I had done one of these, and I had done one of these, and one of these, and I got blisters all over my face from that. I mean, just like these water-filled blisters. It was so gross. But I didn't realize, and typically I don't deal with like irritants from the garden, but now I know Euphorbia is bad. Hyacinth bulbs also make me itch like my neck really bad. I don't know why. Chris said, why does the clematis on the trellis never bloom? It does bloom. It bloomed for most of the summer. They're pink mink clematis. When I planted them there, Aaron was like, those aren't going to get enough sun to bloom. And I told him, well, even if they don't, I think it's a perfect vine because it's got a delicate looking leaf, delicate structure, and I still want to see the trellises. I don't want to plant something that's going to cover the beauty of the structure that those trellises add right there. And that pink mink has been fantastic, and the blooms are really pretty. We have some pictures. Sheldub said, your arrangement was beautiful, so natural and flowy, thank you. Was the piano music you playing? No, actually a lot of you guys thought that or asked that. I have never played the piano for one of our videos before, so that was not me. And the very last question was from Chelsea. Before my question, just want to say thank you for your videos. I enjoy watching them with coffee before my boys wake up. Your channel and video is the brightness this world needs right now. So sweet. Thank you. Beautiful arrangement. To make it last a little longer, could you use wilt stop, or is it not necessary with fall arrangements? You know, for inside, I'm not sure that it would. It might help. I mean, it might help with moisture loss. It's not something I've really tried out before. Definitely something to use on your winter arrangements outside, though. If you're doing, you know, greens and your wreaths or garlands or containers, definitely use wilt stop. It works so well. But inside, that's a good question. I might have to try that out. And that's it, you guys, for today's questions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you have a great week, and we will see you in the next one.